Hello. Hi, everyone. My name's Uzman Mansoor, and I'm one of the internal medicine residents at the Wright Center. Just recently matched, going on to 2.5 months now. Just wanted to, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but just wanted to share a couple things about, you know, the whole process. So starting from the island into the clinicals and then going into the match process. So on the island, when we do first start med school, it does seem very, very new and different, but the support you get from the professors, the actual like PowerPoint slides and everything, it's actually very intuitive. And if you have the goal is in place, if you have the will, you can actually make it off the island, pass your step one, and also start clinicals, and then eventually with the goal to actually go on and match into residency. Um, so going into the clinic life, when in the third and fourth year of MUA, I found it very interesting how we had the cores in the beginning, and that set a nice foundation, especially where I rotated at with Chabert Medical Center in Houma, Louisiana. That was a really nice clinic rotation for us to get our feet wet and get our hands, into medicine itself. So I think that was very good going into third year. Fourth year, we had a lot of autonomy. So I was looking back into it now. At first, I would think, hey, I'm kind of lost. But going back into it now, um, I would say, it's very intuitive. You have the autonomy to schedule, your electives in whatever field you might be interested in, and that's very important. I would actually recommend actually looking into the field, having it in mind, because one of the issues I ran into was I was kind of split between surgery and internal medicine, and that reflected in my electives I chose to do, and further reflected in my application. It showed up as being dual-minded surgery or internal medicine. So when you look into that, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. But overall, third and fourth year was very good. Again, it can be overwhelming, stressful, and a little difficult, but as long as you keep pushing, keep doing what you're supposed to be doing, it does end up eventually working out for you and for the better. Um, but going into the match process, which I actually wanted to talk a little bit more about, and a lot of people probably have a lot of questions on. So the match process, it begins at the end, closer to the end of every year. I would recommend by the time you get to the match process, you already have a good guideline set forth for you, um, good game plan, I would call it, as in going and finding research. I mean, finding programs that are heavy in internal medicine. I mean, IMG graduates. So that's a really big one. And then I would recommend, since we are from Medical University of Americas, you would want to, keep, and we're considered IMGs from the Caribbean island. So you would want to keep, sorry, but you would want to keep that in the back of your head. So you need to look for programs that accept IMG friendly, they're IMG friendly. You also, if you have great scores and good LORs, you can also apply to the really, really tough programs that are more competitive, and it's never worth giving it a shot. I mean, don't let anyone put you down that, hey, I don't think you'll, match in this program. Go for it, give it a shot. You work 4 years that long and that hard, and you deserve every shot you can get. So um, with the whole match process, it's actually very helpful, like especially with the personal statement, which kind of scared me the most. But our my alumni MUA actually, we I wrote my personal statement. I sent it in, and it was edited and also reviewed very well. They made, they said they recommended changes here and there, and in the end, it turned out to be a really good personal statement, and I actually got a lot of good comments on it from a lot of my interviews, that your personal statement is well written, your personal statement looks good, and then so you have to make sure your personal statement is is a good read, and then above all, the step scores. I mean, granted, I don't like putting everything on step scores, but the step score is how they start with the filter process. And again, a lot of programs that are IMG friendly or not even IMG friendly do have these filters in place, but they're, depending on what specialty, the filters are, you know, at a fairly decent threshold where you can pass through it. Once you pass through the filter for the step scores, then you enter in the realm of your other application, research. Going in with research is recommended. They actually do look for a lot of research. You know, they want a well-rounded resident. In the end of the day, they don't want someone that's only book smart. They don't want someone that's only good on research. So my advice would be, try to get yourself to be the most well-rounded person you can possibly become, and that'll help you in the long run. Going into letters of recommendation, start that process early. Start it very early. What I mean by that is, you need to get the ball rolling. Let your attendings know, hey, can I get a LOR? And then keep following up with it, because when it gets down to the time when submission's starting, it's you know, you're running around all over the place. You're trying to figure out what to do and what not to do, and then it's hard to just is it working now? Okay. But yeah, so you know, getting that off to a good start, a head start, is definitely worth the trouble, and it's expected by all attendings that eventually they would be asked for letters of recommendations. So get that process started as soon as you can. Pertaining to the other aspects of the ERAS application and the match process, our school actually does a really good job in preparing a nice MSPE letter, which is another term for the dean's letter. They are very punctual about sending it in on a good time, and I must say they do write some nice things, and of course, they will never want to put you down. So it's always gonna go for you. So that's a nice thing to have on the back of your hand. Like, hey, it doesn't go to waste, all the stuff you did through med school, the good grades, the good connections you had with everyone, everything that's you know, it shows in the end. So just looking into that in a little nutshell, the residency process, and then it does get a little hectic. You start getting interviews rolling in, and you know, scheduling it here and there. This season might be a tad bit different. One recommendation and some rumors I've been hearing is, going into this season is going to be a lot more virtual, you know, what do you call it, interviews. So a lot more people are going to be applying to a lot more programs, because that whole traveling to the interview program and getting that whole, like, that, it's a 3-day process, you know, going there, staying there, getting the interview done, and flying back or wherever you may be. So this year I would recommend applying broad, applying a lot more programs, because this year a lot more programs are, and by virtual I mean even for our even for students or applicants that are overseas, they'll be able to do virtual visits as well. So it's just more of a game. Like, you have to up it up another level this season, but it's all up in the air. Those are just a few little things I've been hearing around the you know, this season, some things we're looking into. So especially, I mean, in my program, where we've been talking a little bit about it, and they are saying that, you know, they're going to start the virtuals off, but then they might look into, it's all up in the air. Then if, you know, something comes out for the coronavirus, and they might start doing in person. But Yeah, aside from that, it's something that definitely you should keep in the back of your head because this season might be a little different than previous seasons. Um, Aside from that, going the process and then getting the interviews, the rank list is, another challenge. It actually took me quite a few days to make my rank list, figuring out what's at the top and what's at the bottom. So that kind of does play into it. So my recommendation would be, it's kind of difficult to remember all what you talked about during interviews. So they give like packets. With these packets, you can actually, I made a little box and just keep throwing them in there and making notes during the interview. That makes you look very attentive, and as well as your reference later on when it does come time to rank. You don't want to lose um, anything out from the ranking. You don't want to forget, hey, this program had this, and this fellowship. I might rank this higher than this program, but when it comes time to rank, you forget, and then you rank the other program higher than this program. So just something to look into. And then also for my third and fourth year students that are looking into, well, mostly for fourth year as well, my you know, it, in today's times, it's hard to get electives, and I know a lot of you are frustrated and trying to figure out where to do electives. So my residency program actually started to have students in, and I actually have one of our students that's rotating through the Right Center right now. He's at the clinic outbased clinic, and he's on a 4 week elective, and it was pretty nice. And then I have another one of my classmates, Martin Higgins. He matched into family medicine, so it's really nice seeing a lot of our MUA colleagues around here. Um, and then if anything, if you need any help, if you need any help booking an elective, I can always help out with that. I can try to guide you guys in certain electives that might be beneficial to you versus, keeping that streamlined. That was my biggest issue. I did half surgery and half internal medicine, and it does hinder your process. When you apply to programs, they don't want someone that's using it as a backup. Like everyone would think, oh, surgery is my primary, and then in the end, it turns out that internal medicine was just my backup. So they'll always end up ranking you a tad bit lower because they want to make room for actual people that do go into internal medicine. But in the end, after I did my electives and surgery, I did decide to just do internal medicine. The lifestyle was just not my thing I wanted to get into in the future, looking at future attending lifestyles. So get a good picture of what you want, what you expect, and not just for the time being. I want you to think about the future. Look 5 to 10 years. Is this the field I want to be in? I have an attending right now. She did 3 years of residency in general surgery, and then she was like, nope, this is not for me, and then she transferred into internal medicine. So it's, I would say have a good game plan, have a good like you have to know what you want to go into. And then, I'm not saying you can't do this and do that. If you do decide to do that, then apply broadly, apply to a lot of programs, and make sure you keep it somewhat even, or you can do whichever one you have leaning towards a little more, so you get a good balance of interviews from both places, and it sets you for a nice run. There's the saying, if you at least get like 10 interviews, it's more likely match somewhere. I don't know how true that is, but just putting it out there. And then aside from that, looking back at MUA as well, just want to touch again on the island life. It was pretty interesting. It was nice growing to close with a lot of my classmates. I do miss them. I haven't kept in touch with but you make connections. You make a good life. The student to professor ratio is, I think, 2 to 3 to 1 professor for 2 students. It's actually really good. Knowing your professors and saying hello to them, seeing them around town, they're so nice. Like, it just makes the process a lot better. And of course, everyone has different ways of how they want to learn. Some like lectures, some are self-study, and I think MUA does a pretty good job in gearing your education towards what you want it to be. Like some might like team-based learning. We have that as well. Some like PowerPoints, that's there as well. Some want to study remotely or study alone, and that's also available, and which which is pretty great. You get your weekends off, and then the best thing is we got like a little bit of clinic, a touch of clinic on the island as well, which was pretty interesting and felt really good. I do remember that time, and it's very minimal, but it's still a good time. You're in the little hospital they have down there, and you feel like something, and it's just those little things that you need to keep up with that keep you going. And then aside from that, advice wise, even like I mean, I'm only 2.5 months into it, but going into like last month I had my ICU rotation, and then before that I was on the floors. This month I'm in the clinic, but going back into the ICU too. I remember I did a elective as my fourth year, and that elective I did as my fourth year, believe it or not, helped me in my ICU rotation. My fellow interns, they were great, but presentations, stuff, the flow of the ICU, pressers, you have to worry about like certain drips or nut drips. The presentation would be the biggest one. Attendings want an ICU presentation, which is a lot different than regular presentations. So that's something as well when you're thinking about electives. Think about what you might be doing in your residency and where you might struggle the most to gear your electives towards that as well. I know doing a critical care elective can be tough, but I tell you, it does benefit you because you will be in the ICU if you choose to do internal medicine at least 2 to 3 times a year, and 2 3 months in your first year. So just something to look forward to. All that experience does help. It really does. So don't try to schedule easy electives. If you do, it's completely fine, and they're very educational. But try to get the best out of your time while you're doing that time. That's what I would like to say. It's just, don't waste your time. And there has been a lot of instances where I was I was like, oh, I want to study for my CK. Let me just book this outpatient family medicine elective. It was good. It was educational. It was, not the very fast, not the pace I wanted to be at, but it was beneficial. So going into, just that. Aside from that, um, I don't know. Is there any specific questions you all have? I don't know what more I can say. I don't want to, bore everyone. And sorry, I look a little tired. It's been a tough day in the clinic. Had a lot of complicated patients, we'll put it at that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of your seniors, and believe it or not, they may not be active on the Facebook, but we're very open. We're very open to anyone. Just send us an email or send us a Facebook message. I'm sure a lot of our seniors wouldn't mind helping out, and I still have contact with a lot of the other students, and I help out in any way possible I can. So in the future, if not right now, you don't have any questions, just let me know later on. And I I I want to continue this alumni with student connection because I wish I had more of that alumni to student connection. So I'm always open. I want to set up more opportunities for the students at my residency. I mean, three it's a pretty big residency, 300, 350 residents, 3 specialties. So it's an untapped gem that a lot of people should look into as electives or rotations. And then again, residency wise, it all depends on what y'all choose to do, but just get that and get that big, core down. Get it down, or else you'll struggle a tad bit more during intern year. But have you ever dealt with residency reviews? So, pertaining to a lot of residency programs, so they are aware there's plenty of Caribbean schools. And pertaining to your question specifically, have you ever dealt with residency interviews who were unaware of MUA? So I have had that question asked during my interviews. where's your school? And we just describe it's on Nevis, it's right next to St. Kitts, and they're like, oh, how was it? And then you tell them how it was. For me, it was great. The education's great. And pertaining to the unaware part, the thing is, the Caribbean islands have a lot of med schools, and MUA actually is in the top. So they are aware, and then if they aren't aware, they do get made aware because we have a lot of students now that are rotating and also applying through those programs. So it's not like the Caribbean is unknown. Every program director knows of the Caribbean island schools. So I don't know if that, uh, you know, helps your question, but yeah, you have to just give a tiny bit of explanation where it is, describe the island. They love having those conversations, island life, and so it's an avenue. I used it as an avenue to start a conversation. I use it as an avenue to bring up more conversations. So always use every question in a positive way. And just I hope that answered your question. Any other questions? Hmm. All right. Well, I mean, if you guys don't have any questions currently, I'm always available. I can put out my email address as well for questions for our students. And then, I'm sure if you have any specific questions for my school, they can always forward it to me if they aren't able to answer, if they want more experience from residents and stuff like that. So any future questions as well, just let me know. Um, hmm, how old is too old to go to med school? I would say never is not too old to go to med school. We've had many, many, many students in my class as well that were fairly older. But again, in the beginning, I said if you have the drive and if you have the goal, you'll get there one way or another. It's just how you want to get there and when you'll get there. Maybe you might not get there at the same pace as your fellow colleagues, but you will get there if you have the will. So it's never too old. Right now, I have a resident. He's an intern, and he is, I would say, 37, 38. So, it's never too late. They don't see, I mean, they see age, but it's not a factor that plays into if you'll match or not. It's your ability, your scores, and how well you present yourself during the interview. Any other questions? All right. Um, Well, if y'all don't have any questions, and if any questions do arise later on, I'm sure MUA will not. Oh, you're welcome. But I'm sure MUA will not hesitate to take your questions, and at their best of their ability, they will answer it. And if not, they have a vast array of alumni that are willing to help the future students and students currently. And I am one of those alumni, so just let me know anything you need, and the school will reach out to me if anything else is needing. Aside from that, I'll call it a day for right now. I'll call it a day in period for for today. It's been a long day, but it is tiring. It asks a lot, and some days you'll feel like, what am I doing? Some days you'll feel like, what's going on? But eventually you will enjoy it. And again, just have that fire inside of you, and you'll make it. And then just keep pushing and believing in yourself. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and end it. Again, thank you so much for having me on. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get it done last week. Again, it's been since this whole opening of clinics again and COVID decreasing. There's been a great influx of patients everywhere. So, and then my residency, we kind of rotate through one, two, three. So two community hospitals, one private hospital, one VA hospital, and 6 clinics. So it can get quite hectic. So just let me know if you have any questions and concerns. I appreciate it. Thank you.